Catalyst to say what has never been said. Catalyst to say what has never been said, to see what has never been seen, to draw, paint, sing, sculpt, dance, and act what has never before been done, to push the envelope of creativity and language. And what's really important is, I call it the felt presence of direct experience, which is a fancy term which just simply means we have to stop consuming our culture. We have to create culture. Don't watch TV. Don't read magazines. Don't even listen to NPR. Create your own road show. The nexus of space and time where you are now is the most immediate sector of your universe. And if you're worrying about Michael Jackson or Bill Clinton or somebody else, then you are disempowered. You're giving it all away to icons. Icons which are maintained by an electronic media, so that you want to dress like X or have lips like Y or something. This is shit-brained, this kind of thinking. That is all cultural diversion. And what is real is you and your friends and your associations, your highs, your orgasms, your hopes, your plans, your fears. And we're told, no, we're unimportant, we're peripheral, get a degree, get a job, get a this, get a that, and then you're a player. You don't even want to play in that game. You want to reclaim your mind and get it out of the hands of the cultural engineers who want to turn you into a half-baked moron consuming all this trash that's being manufactured out of the bones of a dying world. Where is that at?
Ladies and gentlemen.
You were having a nightmare. What if it's true?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Alan, it's a possibility, isn't it?
The very word secrecy is repugnant.
Secrets.
In a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers,
Constant, extreme danger,
which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger,
extreme danger,
that an announced need for increased security.
What the hell is going on?
This is Conspiracy Queries with Alan Hart.
Will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control.
You're crazy.
And no officious, high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes.
Isn't the Pentagon suspicious that all the building would blow up?
Or to withhold from the press and the public
I think you're just looking at things for the first time.
the facts they deserve to know.
You've had your whole f***ing life to think things over. What good's a few minutes more gonna do you now?
The facts they deserve to know. They deserve to know. Deserve to know.
All right. Okay. All right.
Deserve to know.
What I'm gonna do one day, I'm just gonna release a whole album. Because this is getting longer and longer, the beginning of the show, but there's interesting things to be said there, and, you know.
Facts they deserve to know.
Yeah. Okay, there it is. My fist's up. Right. I'll put stuff in it if I need to use it. Right? You ever do that? You should do that. Oh, yeah. So it's another hot Toronto, July kind of Tuesday afternoon. Here we are in this world, where I had to play the music at the beginning of the show that came just after Terence McKenna's sage word about not letting those who create and dispense the culture tell you exactly how it's going to be. Instead of that, think for yourself. You know, understand that there's more work to be done than what is purveyed on the media, myself included. If you've heard that I've gotten through a rough patch of cancer, perhaps even a fatal one, you might not believe that, and that would be completely where I would hope you would go in the first place, to understand that indeed I did have a very debilitating case of you're not going to live anymore, stage 4 cancer. And I was going to die at the end of 2014. So I was told by the experts. This is Green Crush Conspiracy Queries. Welcome to the show. That's why I talk about these things, because it just keeps on being important that there's a means to grow a plant that can turn your life around. It can. It is possible that it will do that. That's my disclaimer, my overt disclaimer for people that seem to be under the misinterpretation that I'm telling you that it will always work for everyone all the time. I never said that, and I constantly defend it. But it turns out that nothing can cure everyone all the time of everything, so I'm not really, out on a limb with that statement. What I'm saying is that it can, as it did with me, through the miracle of apoptosis. Hallelujah. Apoptosis. It actually helped my cancer cells to kill themselves. And then I went off of it, the oil proper, for a long time, through my last major course of doing what's called FECO, full extraction cannabis oil, or Rick Simpson oil, or what have you. The last full ingestion of that went from the end of 2016. Let's say I started in September, actually. I remember that. Started September, and I crammed in 3 courses of doing the oil. You would think that would take 7 months if you were following to the letter. 3 months for the first course, 2 months for the second courses each. But I crammed it in there. Once I really started to get up to the threshold level where you're no longer intoxicated or high or wasted or impaired by the cannabis, simply because you have it in your body, which seems to be the fallacy of those in blue and their bankers, the judges and the cops and everybody in the justice system who benefits from this new legalization of cannabis. It will be them. Lots of work coming when there shouldn't have been. But I'm kind of off the point here. I use this cannabis plant. Now, am I endorsing this? I suppose that could be a case made, although I could easily argue against it. I'm just stating facts over here. I'm saying that when I got into a pickle medically and they gave me no outs, the first 3 doors were not an option to me. Chemo, surgery, radiation. Not an option. So please take heed of that point. I get people telling me, oh, you're telling people to do things they shouldn't be doing. There were no other options. So, because I used my own mind and was open to a helpful message, I did so take a look at this cannabis oil aspect. And I know your people are going to get upset, and if they don't try it, and if they don't know that you're telling the truth. You can't know that I'm telling the truth. You can't know that. You can want to believe it. And for those that do, you're right. But you don't have to. And that's where you come in. Okay, so when I first got the message that I should try medical cannabis, and that's how vague it was. You should get involved with medical cannabis. That was the message, those exact words. You should get involved with medical cannabis. And I got that message at the tail end of a deep, dark year where I was unraveling physically. And then got a diagnosis of cancer about 3 hours after that notion of medical cannabis came to me. So when I got the diagnosis a few hours later, all I had in my mind was the notion that I should try medical cannabis and a prescription full of morphine so the pain wouldn't hurt me anymore. And then I was able to go back to work in secrecy of my hiding my illness, back to my comedy television show. So I was able to go back there with, morphine and the knowledge that I needed to get involved with medical cannabis. So how do you even do that? I didn't even know, but it did not give me at that moment that information and that news. I was bound to follow it up, but it did not give me a relaxed feeling. I didn't think, oh, this will be great, no problem then. I was skeptical. First of all, why would I even think of that at this time? Second of all, really? I'm so bad now because it's terrible stage 4. It's going to kill me soon. And what do I know about medical cannabis? Nothing. Oh, I know what I should do. I should turn on the CBC and read Newsweek magazine or some other bullshit. I should read what they have to say on the matter. And then when they get to the point where it's doubtful that it causes any kind of helpful medical improvement whatsoever, I guess I'll just be turning off the TV and throwing my pot away. No, I thought for myself. So today on the music, that's why I wanted to play The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming, a theme song from a very funny movie whose theme apparently is being recycled. We're not going to spend much time on that at all because I didn't really care too much for the orchestrations of the entire Trump blimp visit. I thought it was poorly broadcast. The day of it was well broadcast, but the following day wasn't very well broadcast. And just a lot of people in the media will tell you things that you'll later find out are not true. Remember when coffee was good for you, and then it was bad for you, and then it was good for you, and then it was bad for you again, now it's good for you again. Okay, so remember when remember when vaccines are 100% safe all the time, but then they do have a vaccine injury compensation board, and you look at the history of why that's there and what they did to create it? It can't come from a result of vaccines have always been 100% safe all the time, or they wouldn't have a vaccine injury board. So those are the kinds of things that we've been talking about. Now listen, I got a great show today. We have a couple of guests in-house, in studio. And I'm very excited about it. We have Ken Proude. He is former military guy, Canadian military. And we also have Henah G. And Henah and Ken have teamed up to put together a very detailed movie about all of this awareness to which I was speaking of. So they will be coming on shortly. And I've gone long again because I always do, because it's only on once a week. And I had some things I needed to say. But let's get to some good news. We do have some good news here. Where is it? Where's that good news? Where the hell's that good news? Oh my goodness. I do believe. Oh yeah. Okay, so what happened there? I lost something here. Oh my goodness. All right, we'll get back to it, I guess. Where the hell did that thing go? Well, Anyway, let's get to the next thing. This is the live show. This is where I got into the studio a little late today, and I'm having trouble locating something. Okay, so hang on. Boy, oh boy, it was there yesterday. This program has gone off and left me in the lurch again. Oh wow, what a bummer. Okay, let's see. Well, I don't know if where that thing is. Okay, so. Anyway, that's the end of the show today. Thanks for coming. Russ is back. I'm sure he's happy to be here after all that trouble. I've got a program that is kind of freaking out here. I'm trying to get out of this, but it won't leave me alone. Hang on. You know what I need is I need a tech guy. You know, I need a tech guy. Not now you today. I mean in general in life. In general in life, I need a tech guy. That's definitely what I need. And, okay, so can we just get this damn thing going here? All right. We have a cannabis cocktails, mocktails, and tonics book that I'd like to tell you about. We had a guest on a little bit ago, Warren Bobrow, and he has sent us a book that we are going to send you. Here it is. Warren Bobrow was a fascinating guy on the show a few weeks ago. Episode, I don't know what it was, a few episodes ago. Listen to them all. Don't worry about it too much. This is Cannabis, Cocktails, Mocktails, and Tonics. And it's The Art of Spirited Drinks and Buzzworthy Libations, a collection of 75 recipes. He's also written a book called Apothecary Cocktails. So, yeah, here's an example here. So like he's got all kinds of cool drinks. Now the deal with these is that there's no booze in them. Okay, so here's the Thai spiced ginger beer. Oh, that looks good. Thai spiced ginger beer. So what do we have? Is a lemon zest bottle of non-alcoholic ginger beer. Difference between that and ale. Root tea liquor. Oh, I guess that is that booze in it. What am I saying? Spearmint tea, etc., etc. Look at that delicious thing. I wish I had one of those right now. And anyway, so we are going to give this book away to one of our fantastic listeners, and we're going to call it a Green Crush giveaway because we're giving it away, and this is Green Crush. The past guest, Warren. Yeah, I've already said that. Okay, so get on our socials at Green Crush Pod. That's at Green Crush Pod for details on how you can be the proud owner of this book. Okay, there it is one more time. Fantastic. All right, so now I have a little something else we got to get to here. Is that's way in the background supposed to be. That's okay. Double load today, right? So here it is. The Canadian government says that their notice of intent to amend cannabis, to amend it. This is a new thing of their new act. Now, check this out. This just came out last week. The purpose of this notice of intent to amend is to announce that Health Canada will add phytocannabinoids to the human and veterinary prescription drug lists. Check that shit out. I mean, I guess I gotta say I'm kind of happy to hear that, right? Because if you're not catching why I'd be happy to hear that, I'll tell you. A major world government who used to shit all over the fence, who's been hiding this stuff for a long time, and just keeping a sort of an obscure medical system together, and they've been bucking at people wanting to take it recreationally, are now saying they're adding phytocannabinoids, which means, you know, cannabis, stuff that grows in the sun. And it's going to be for pets. My little pet, he knows what that's like. He's had that by accident one Christmas. Dear Herb, this is to theleafnews.com. Can I smoke my medical marijuana in public? Canada's legal medical cannabis program is a matter of federal law, but Ottawa doesn't regulate smoking in most places. Unfortunately, there's no definitive answer to that question because a bunch of idiots made the laws. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to assume you're a medical cannabis user who's legally registered with Health Canada. So then it goes on to explain the very different, depending on the province, depending on all kinds of things. How about Manitoba's Cannabis Harm Prevention Act that amends the province's Non-Smokers Health Protection Act to restrict cannabis smoke just like tobacco smoke, without any special exception for medical cannabis users. This is how messed up in the head these people have made themselves. And let's get down to the numbers while we're at it. High costs discourage medical marijuana coverage in Canada despite legalization. So it's going to be expensive even when they get it through. But thank goodness they're getting it through, because it's not going to be that expensive, because you're not going to be giving out all these other drugs, dummy. You know what I mean? You're going to be spending far less money on all kinds of other medical reasons. Stop being on the one and say, well, it's going to be expensive with the cops. Well, then fund it into, habit-forming addiction programs. Put it into there then. Help people. Look at the Portuguese model. High costs are discouraging insurance companies to give medical marijuana coverage despite the legalization. High costs to reimburse or give coverage needs to be explained to the Veterans Affairs Canada's Change of Hearts too. So we'll have our guests to talk about that on there. Meanwhile, Ontario, this guy Doug Ford, who's just shown up to be some kind of leader, he says that Ontario injured workers are shut out of medical pot coverage. And these folks have been told instead to take opioids. It's the fucking government here saying this shit. Many injured workers in Ontario are being given an ultimatum. Take potentially addictive cocktails of opioids and other pharma, or pay for your own weed or help. That's what a CBC Toronto investigation revealed. Meanwhile, there's an opioid epidemic. And, these people are in pain. And then you get these other wedge holders, these folks that say, well, it's against the law, And I think I'll bring in our guests. I just wanted to play a little something before I do that, so why don't we send the guests on in here. Listen to this thing.
Let's go back to Penny Daflos at the Peace Arch border crossing. Penny, what type of cannabis investments can cause problems crossing the border?
Well, we're told that Homeland Security was really vague about that, but it could be something as simple as investing in an American marijuana company to keep you from entering the United States. Bud is big business and plenty of people are already profiting, but a new policy at the border could have those seeing green hitting the brakes.
I was truly shocked by what happened to me.
Sam Znaimer is one of Canada's best-known venture capitalists, recently putting his money behind budding pot companies. He was stopped at the border in May and says it was his investments in weed rather than whether he smoked it that were the issue.
In the course of 4 hours, they never did ask that. And I believe that was because they want to send a message to Canadians that it has not only to do with your personal behavior, but whether in any way you have invested in these companies.
Some people are caught off guard. They think it's legal in Washington State, which it is. It's going to be legal in Canada, so what's the big deal? Why not admit to the officer at the border that you've invested in a cannabis company in California?
But Len Saunders is seeing a growing number of business people denied entry and even banned from going back for investing in U.S. companies. He says their options are limited.
Either stop traveling to the U.S. or get out of the business.
Either stop traveling to the U.S. or get out of the business because you decided as a Canadian to invest in either a Canadian company or an American company. And now, because there are so many states that have legal access to cannabis, etc., now you can't even cross the border. They're going to get you into a position where you won't be able to cross. It's illegal. So thankfully, we will have some kind of change here later on. We will talk about it with our guests who have just joined us. Welcome into the room. Here we have Ken Proude is here. Henah G, nice to see you again. And here we are with, tell us about your, I was going to jump right into the documentary, but tell us exactly what you're doing first and how we came to know you. Of course, Ken is a veteran, or he was a vet. I guess if you were a veteran, you're always a veteran, right? Because of the nature of the word. And Henah is, I don't know, something's happening. Henah is a documentarian at this point. So we'll just let you guys describe what you are instead of me spending time with it. So
thank you so much, Alan, for having us here today.
Shoot, I'm gonna need some help, Russ, and not with a drink. I don't know why. Can you lean right in on that, like it's. Yeah, that's it. Just put your mouth right up to it. Okay. It's okay, because this is, that's better. There we go. Okay.
Thank you for having me today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for being had.
Nobody's ever called me that before.
What's that?
What you just called me.
A documentarian?
Yeah, well, I like it.
Isn't that what you're doing?
I'm going to own it now.
You're so quiet. You're quiet. Just it's okay if you actually touch this thing
Okay.
with your lips. It's okay. They'll clean the gloss off of the foam later on. It's no big deal.
Use mom voice.
Yeah. So I want to hear what you have to say. So we came across you guys because we are affiliated and understand as for a person who's not ever been in the military, I understand the military relationship very well from previous guests and research about cannabis and veterans. And I think people get the idea that, you guys are good law abiding folks who are upstanding. You wouldn't be smoking pot, would you? And there's that whole...
Well, that's one of the reasons behind the documentary that we're going to be shooting itself is to help educate veterans that have never been around cannabis their entire life in order to use it properly.
Yeah, Ken, I'm going to jump in right away.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because, and forgive me for that, the premise of us now, the Veterans Channel, producing and airing a medical cannabis veterans docu-series, I'll say, is really about witnessing and capturing veterans in fellowship and in dialogue with one another, where they are discussing and addressing the issues that face them, their successes, their challenges, with not just the right strains of medical cannabis, but the how-to of medical cannabis and the shifts in the laws and how that affects them. My interest in doing that, Alan, is veterans will educate other veterans. Veterans will uplift one another. Veterans United, we believe, will bridge gaps and provide new infrastructures and solutions. So the Veterans Channel's position in producing a medical cannabis docu-series is that veterans will educate one another and start to present various solutions to their issues around medical cannabis.
Okay, let's real quick. What's, for example, anything at all? Just tell me what issue, what kind of issue would you be talking about? Because remember, we've spent time together, but a lot of people who have not been in the military or they had a different experience. I mean, what do you mean by an issue?
Yeah.
Give me an issue where this would be important.
Sure, and it would only be fair for me to pass the baton now to Ken because he has first-hand knowledge and experience. So I would let him share as to what those issues may look like.
So one of the main starting issues that comes with someone who's never used cannabis before is establishing a dosage level, because a lot of people don't want to smoke it. They want to eat it. They want to use edible oils. They want to put it into whatever and be able to consume it and medicate that way. So, but everybody's edible tolerance is different, and there's really no happy medium right off the get-go. You know what I mean? Either you're not going to feel it, or you might accidentally take too much, and that's when some people get scared. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
and then they don't want to do anymore, and then
Exactly.
they write it off, and they cut themselves off from a potential.
or the wrong strain. It
Right.
doesn't interact correctly with their individual endocannabinoid system, and instead of removing anxiety, may cause paranoia, may cause anxiety. You know what I mean? And just it could send them in the wrong direction. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they need guidance of people who have used multiple strains and have been within the cannabis world itself for a varying degree of time, enough to be able to pass on that knowledge to each other, so that everybody gains the same level of knowledge, and then everybody finds their end game with cannabis, whether it's PTSD and they're trying to get rid of their nightmares, or it's chronic pain and they just want to be able to walk up a flight of stairs without reaching a 9 out of 10 on a pain scale. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or,
I do. Yeah. So how did you get involved? You weren't in the military, Henah. So
No,
how did you
sir.
get involved in? Oh, don't call me.
I have to. Mark
All
Wicks
right.
is listening.
Okay. How did you get involved? You're not in the you weren't in the
No.
military.
No, my story, and I'm sticking to it, is I fell in love with one, and then all of them, based on
A military guy.
Yes.
Okay.
So, my partner in co-creating veteran retreats and our 501c3 Veteran Retreats Foundation, and now what's led to the channel, is a man who served 18 years in the U.S. Army and then resigned.
Just before he resigned, tell everybody who's not American what a 501c3 is.
A nonprofit charity.
A nonprofit
Yes.
charity. Okay.
And so I witnessed his transition and in sometimes lack of transition from the military into the civilian world, and in looking for and seeking solution and modalities that would assist in his own post-traumatic stress disorder. I was then exposed to veterans on a grand scale and everything they stand for, what they're suffering from, and I witnessed that when veterans are helping veterans, they're better. Veterans who are suffering, if they have another brother that they can help, then they're doing better. And I witnessed that when they are repurposed, because they live with purpose daily when they're serving, when they're now serving the civilian world again in a different capacity, when you repurpose them, then they do better. They heal physically, emotionally. So once I witnessed veterans helping veterans, then I grew a lane where I was able to and am able to support, and forgive me for saying this to you men, but from a more of a womb perspective, to just present a distribution platform for veterans' voices and to present themselves, so I want to edify them.
Okay, great. And so you are, to do that, you let's tell everybody first what you came up with. And now, Reese, I'll go backwards. You were just where I've been living, and came into the backyard there, and we shot some documentary footage for you. Hope any of that came out.
Thank you so much. It's fabulous, actually, yes.
And so you're going to put some of that or edit it down along with all these other things you're shooting into programming and perhaps a complete documentary on its own, or you're doing several different shows, or what's? Yes, we are. We're doing a series of shows. And on today's date, we are highlighting Canada and the U.S. We have what we call a Charlie 1 out there looking for in the UK for veterans that would be able to share with us, teach us on this side, us Canadians and Americans, what the climate is like for them from their own words. So yes, we'll do a series and we'll highlight not only their, I won't call them testimonials, I'll call them testimonies. Their first-hand knowledge is what I want to capture and share through a series of episodes, as well as different processes that may be educational, different professors and doctors, academics that can speak on the ever-changing world of medical cannabis for us from an R&D perspective as well as an awareness perspective. And so before you started shooting this documentary that you've put me in for some reason, now you already had a lot of programming available, and it comes out online, right? And so where can folks see all of these things? The Veterans Channel can be watched and viewed at www.veteranstelevision.com. That's our URL. You can see our shows there. We welcome and invite veterans, active duty as well, all over the world and their dependents to share their stories with us. Contact us. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, contact us. Share your stories. So you have a lot of. I was just pulling something else that I'm going to ask you about here. So you have a lot of people so far behind you, and of course, how did you meet Ken here? Or Ken maybe wants to tell that story. How did you? Okay, you want to do that? He's actually in the military. How did this come together? And say your husband's not involved, but Ken is. Sure. What's going on? I was invited to. Well, the Veterans Channel was invited to come and film Vets Canada, a gorgeous organization, doing a sweep and an awareness campaign in Ottawa looking for homeless veterans. And I met Ken there. He approached me and he shared with me in a very brief moment baking with cannabis. And I said, great, I need a cooking show. Yeah. Gave him my card. and a week and a half ago, I guess 2 weeks ago, I contacted Ken and I said, I'm ready now. I'm hearing dialogue in multiple countries about medical cannabis. Yeah. It's time for us to at least highlight what some of those dialogues are. You know, just before I bring you back in, Ken, it's fascinating to me that with the whole thing about PTSD, which I've read a lot about, I figure I've had some, and there's different levels of it, and it's induced by different things. And we always go to the hard level of PTSD. That's what you want to get rid of. It's trauma, right? Yeah. But there's also a lower key stress that we all go through, humans, circadian rhythm-wise, etc. It's not as difficult or depressing, but it still affects, and you're going to get that in the military or if you're on a sports team or whatever it is that human beings apparently like to have routine in general. So you get up at 8 o'clock, you brush your teeth or whatever it is, and have coffee and toast, whatever you do. Everybody has their own sort of routine. You don't adhere to that locked in every step of the way all the time, but basically it's a routine, and people do like this. And it's like, it's Sunday now, I want to put my feet up and relax. Everybody has their routines, and this causes a stress when you can't do that routine anymore. Not because it's up to you, but because for some reason you can't do it. Like sometimes people be on holidays and they go, I just can't wait to get back and get home and get back to normal, because that's the routine. That's still a stressor. That's still generating cortisol at a lower level. So you've always got this surf level of stress and tensions coming in, because you're in the military, you're going through all that routine, you've come to adjust to it at a certain point, but now you're out. And you have to deal with the difference of it. Same with prisoners, as horrible as it is in there. A lot of them used to this routine, and you have to eliminate the stress of that. On top of the fact, the reason you're out is that maybe you're injured, such as Ken, and you're dealing with that for the rest of your life. So this is why it's so important for so many people on so many levels to understand. Like, that's what the show, we're trying to blow the doors open on. Just sit around and get stupid. There's so much other depth of application here. So Ken, you guys were working together. You've been doing this for some time now, because I wasn't your first shoot. So
no, well, I've met with 5 veterans so far, and talked about their stories and how cannabis has affected them. And a couple of them where it was one, he had to hide it from her while she was still serving, while he was treating his PTSD with cannabis, and then she used it. Yeah, and then she ended up, now she's a cannabis patient, and she used it for her breast cancer that she had. And she came down and brought us a peace pipe at 4:20 while we were doing our interview. It was great. So it's an amazing transformation for a couple to go through that together. You know what I mean? And
how long was he hiding it from her?
He's been a cannabis patient for 6 years, and it was about 2 years, I think, if I remember correctly, where he more or less hid it. And then she retired and got cancer, and then she decided to steer towards cannabis as medication, and now they bake with it. They make some amazing things with it.
For 2 years, he's hiding it from his wife. Yeah, I'm just going to check the eaves trough again, honey. I'll be right back.
Come back in.
The trough's
It's really bright out,
And again, breaking down the stigma and also more education would prevent scenarios like that from happening in the future.
Yeah, it is. We do joke about it, but it is something that goes on. It is incredible to me that there you go. You have a stricture of the military, so her official legal capacity means that she would have to, I guess, arrest her husband. At that point.
It's against the military ethos.
Yeah,
it's not like it hasn't happened before.
No, exactly. But that's where they were at. Had a few laughs. So the military ethos. I was kind of touching on that at the beginning. The military ethos, as I take it in from memory and through going through my life and understanding it from a citizen point of view, and movies and books and folks that you've met, cannabis smoking is not something that most people associate with soldiers. Am I right?
No.
Ever.
No.
Like you could.
I mean, like there's some Vietnam era videos of guys smoking it over in Vietnam, but other than that, it's not associated with military.
But they were the
whatsoever.
freaks on the bubble. Those guys, apparently, like to the story. Anyway,
yeah.
Right?
So I mean, other than that, it's not associated with military whatsoever until now that we're starting to see it be used as a medicine for PTSD, especially, which is a very it's a condition that a lot of people in the military suffer with.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's
if you've seen
the
anything.
percentage of civilians with PTSD over military with PTSD is the difference is astonishing, right? So, and then when you start to see results from cannabis where like I had a military police officer who had nightmares for 25 years of his life. He smoked a joint the first time with some friends that he trusted, and he slept for 8 hours with no nightmares. First time in 2.5 decades. You know, and so imagine that feeling, that moment of him waking up the next morning. I couldn't even.
Yeah, he's on the phone looking for more weed
years,
for tonight.
2.5 decades, and revelation. You know what I mean? Like,
That would be traumatic in itself, I would imagine. If I had a 25-year really son of a bitch problem and it just got cured like that with one little thing, and then I realize all the time I put into trauma,
there's some
my
resentment
God,
there.
you've got to feel resentment. It's like that. I feel the same resentment when what happened to me medically reversed, and I got so much better after being told there was no way to do this with this particular plant substance. Yeah, I got to check my fury sometimes. I really do. It doesn't really go away, and it's not going to until the changes enough have been made to reflect that. But I'll still hate the whole time that, people have been told there's nothing you can do. And this has been fiction for so many of these individual cases, from PTSD on to terminal diseases and pain levels.
I'm going to be paying attention to how this will affect the active duty men and women that are currently serving, based on the history and the ethos, as you put it.
Yeah. So what is the ethos? And let's talk about how we are going to change it. And then when we do that, are military folks going to be, running a point through Raqqa or something and having a toke, or how does it work?
Well, I haven't done much looking into what the military ethos are going to stand once legalization federally comes about.
They must have a policy, right?
But I have seen some news articles that talk about it and how they're going to be conducting limitations and testing and that kind of stuff when it comes to nanograms and that kind of stuff, and so it's they're kind of in the we don't know how we're going to have it play out exactly stage right now, because they're still kind of waiting,
and we can't speak on
so
their
we
behalf.
Can't speak on their behalf either. So I mean, we can only I can only go off of what
Sure.
the news posts and what comes up on Facebook through the various veteran channels and that kind of stuff.
So you have seen some kind of
there is some stuff
brass
out there,
ring assessing basically the military equivalent of what Bill Blair is doing.
Basically, they're talking about it, is what I've seen, more or less. It's in discussion about how to add it in along with the the alcohol.
Right. Because go back to the ethos. So forget about all the weed. What is the military ethos? What is that?
Basically, the huge set of rules that tell you how you should conduct yourself as a member of the armed forces, representative of your country, essentially.
And does it specifically ban cannabis, or does it just not mention it?
It bans illicit drugs. And since it's still not federally legal, it's still considered an illicit drug, right? So it's under the same respect as cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine. It's all an illicit drug, right? So anything that's illegal right now is against the illicit drugs.
And there's no one within the upper echelons of the military to speak to the incongruous nature of what we all know to be alcoholic enjoyment from the brass on down to the lowest private?
I believe that's coming down the pipeline. If I had to speculate, I would say that that's on its way.
What's on its way?
Somebody from higher up in our government that would speak on that.
To say, we've been pounding back alcohol, like crazy forever. I mean, you've heard of there's even a phrase called a drunken sailor. I know that's different. Mm-hmm. It's still a military application.
It was only
but
a decade ago, I think, that they removed rum rations from the Navy.
There you go. So these are the incongruous sort of policy-based realities that need redress.
And it takes time.
You can't have already set systems up like that, and I mean within the military and in society, you can't set up systems where everything's so punitive and restricted and full of danger on the one hand, and then just instantly flip a switch and go, yeah, no, that other stuff is okay though, that does that same thing, or worse, it does different things to the brain. So there's certainly a hypocrisy. So what I'm saying is, once you've made a pile of garbage laws, I'm not ready to trust your new laws when you won't even admit the hypocrisy of the old laws. These are just as messed up, these laws. They're going to be constantly changing them.
It's going to be tough to navigate once legalization happens with all the laws. It's going to take time for each individual province and territory to adapt to their own system of the provincial laws that are being set forth. So it's just a matter of time before it all gets hashed out, I think. And it's going to be trial and error more than likely in the beginning, because they don't know enough about cannabis. In itself, there's not enough research being done.
Why do they tell us it's unhealthy then? Where does that information come
from? Research being done than most people think.
That they're talking about. I think they're doing research and getting great answers that would lead to legal, proliferation, and that's why they don't want the cat out of the bag. I think, So,
and I think veterans play a big part in that research and development if we embrace that.
Sure.
Because the first-hand knowledge that I have is veterans sharing their stories on how it has transformed their lives, or their spouses admitting that, okay, now he's able to go to the grocery store and shop with us, and he's back to being dad, and he's more involved. So I listen to those things, and I stay focused on those, on the positive, while you men dialogue on, what could be better. I say, okay.
No, you're absolutely right.
We do have men taking their lives, and we did have more than one veteran, and forgive me for saying this on the air, but it's true, take their own lives in Canada when the grams were dropped down.
The gram?
Yes.
Oh, the distribution amount that a soldier was allowed to have.
Last year in May.
What was the number before?
It was 10 grams. Veterans Affairs would cover up to 10 grams a day.
10 grams
just a standard
day.
prescription, right? From a family doctor. And then after May 22nd of last year, they changed it from 10 to 3. But to get anything over 3, now you need specialist permission. Now, when it comes to the specialist permission, there's a certain set of credentials that they have to have in order to be able to give you the exemption letter. So it's called an exceptional circumstances letter.
Wow.
And so when you get that, now if you have pain and a mental health issue, you have to have a specialist from a mental health specialist, a specialist letter from a mental health doctor and a pain doctor. Right? You can't have one or the other. You have to have 2 letters in order to get more than 3 grams. And that's where a lot of guys are having issues, is finding specialists that will prescribe medical cannabis or give you the letter.
The detractors would say, well, if you can't get a doctor to assess that, then maybe you don't need more than 3 grams a day. I'm sure they hear that all the time.
Well, of course. The thing with that is there's just not the number of doctors that are willing to prescribe medical cannabis in Canada versus the number of doctors willing to prescribe pharmaceutical medications in Canada.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right? And then try to find specialists that are on board with cannabis as medication. That's even more difficult because it takes forever to get into a specialist anyway in Canada, whether it be orthopedic surgeon or pain. I'm currently on a waiting list for a pain specialist and have been for over a year.
Wow. See, I was just saying this before you came in, so I won't belabor because the listeners have already heard it, but in Ontario, and this isn't military, this is just workers. Injured workers shut out of medical pot coverage, have been told to take opioids instead. Many injured in Ontario are given the ultimatum, take these potentially addictive opioid cocktails and other pharma, or pay for your own help. In other words, it's not going to get covered.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, we'll see where we'll see where Doug takes us. But I don't know where that's going to go. So when you're, we could talk politics all day, but when you're dealing with people, and I'm going to say, veterans, military folks, or maybe even their spouses, when you get right into them and you're spending time with them, don't you just find you talk about dealing with the positive, okay? So here's the positive I always find. There's always someone, every week I'll meet at least one person like this, and maybe more than that, where they were completely dead set against it, cannabis, for health reasons, probably terrible for you, social reasons, their friends don't do it and they think they're a bit of a scumbag if they found out, and the government says things about it that are bad, even though, as you say, there's not enough research. Isn't that amazing, where there's not enough research and we know it's dangerous? I mean, it doesn't really work. But the amazing thing to me is that these people don't seem to understand that this stuff is available to everybody all the time in certain amounts that they're never going to be able to stop. But when they lay down all these facts, not these facts, these edicts, the government, the police, the military isn't in the ethos, etc., and then they have a medical emergency, let's call it, where they get the other side of the story, and again, they're just in shell shock almost. That's a PTSD, almost like, God, this stuff really does work. I was so wrong about how I was looking at it, and then they're just thrilled because then Dad can go and join the picnic and all that stuff, So more people have to know this, and I always get a buzz when I see someone learn that for the first time. You ever get that?
Yeah, I like teaching people
like
the first time. You know what I mean? I like introducing people to it, especially when they're brand new, and I like being the person to teach them. To try to get a dosage right so that they don't have to smoke it, because that's one of the big concerns that a lot of people have is the smoking of it, right? And edible dose can be very difficult to nail down without having gone too far into it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or not enough, and then you're not satisfied, or you're not getting the relief that you need. So
but that's all education too.
Yeah.
I mean, I can select my own beans, grind them, run them through a little system, make myself a cup of coffee. It's easy. I mean, there's 9 steps or whatever.
Common knowledge.
But it's easy.
There's a generation.
Oops, kind of lost you there. Go ahead.
There's a generation, Alan, of servicemen and women out there, World War I, World War II veterans who could probably embrace it in a cup of coffee if they knew how to do that.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Put the weed in the coffee. I was just using that as a metaphor, but yeah, you're right on about that. Yeah, it's very easy to do. So, so now you are going across the country. What are some of the places you're going to and trying to get together, like some of the other folks that are going to be in here? And what messages have you been hearing that you're going to bring forth in these documented videos?
Sure. As Ken shared, he touched down on a couple Canadian veteran families over the last 2 weeks. We are on our way on Friday to Colorado Springs. We are there in fellowship. Okay, we are in an outdoor setting. If we're lucky, we're allowed to light the campfire. I found out there may be a ban, but we'll see where we are.
Yeah.
But either way. We have approximately 12 good men coming together from different walks of life, and some of them have extraordinary stories, and some of them are lecturers, and one's writing a book, and they are heroes, and they're coming together for us in a setting where we can witness them dialoguing amongst each other, so that I can learn for us, so that the channel can learn, and then we will. We'll get a little B-roll if we're lucky, with the sun going down. I'll leave it there. So that's our first stop. Not by design, but we are fortunate enough to be in Colorado Springs on another matter, film matter. And so it gives us the opportunity to at least touch our veteran family in Colorado and say, hey, what's up with you guys?
And they know you're coming?
Oh, yes.
Who? When you say they, who are you referring to?
Your friends in Colorado.
Our friends know we're coming, yes.
Yeah. So that's really another big problem I find is this inconsistency of the legalities. I mean, the plant itself, pretty much, I haven't been to Antarctica, I haven't been to the Arctic, but it's pretty much everywhere. And in that way, it's uniform and ubiquitous. The laws, however, vary from state to province to country to other countries. Apparently, Russia's mad at us. Because Canada making forth any kind, they must be also mad at Uruguay, I guess. I don't know.
Well, they were mad because Canada's a G7 country. I don't think Uruguay is a G7 country.
No, they're not. But that's a country. But we're in that. That's the grouping that the G7 countries aren't allowed to have.
Well,
weed?
no, I just read the article and it was part of, because Russia is part of the G7. That's why they were mad, because it goes against something to do with the G7 treaty. I think it was. I'm not 100% exact sure, but it was the G7, and that's why Russia's mad, because he says it breaches international law when we legalize cannabis federally.
Yeah. He's worried about us breaching international law, is he, Putin? Okay. Just checking. I wanted to take a minute to read something here, because this goes back into... the reason that all those different jurisdictions, it's because of how we police and what we do in as far as locking people up for using it or what have you. So I'd like to what would I like to do? I'd like to play this little piece here. It is this is an article that I would like to read, and I wanted to save a couple articles to read. I usually read a bunch before the guest comes in, but I wanted your feedback on these because you're plugged into two worlds, right? I mean, you're a citizen, but you're also a veteran, right? So you're both, and you guys know what's going on. So listen to this: policing costs climbing too steeply. Police services boards say in Toronto, Ontario's police forces are calling on the governing Liberals, so this is an older article, to halt rising policing costs, which are climbing at a rate of 5 to 7% a year. The province should consider centralizing police bargaining for municipalities and find ways to eliminate the use of police officers for non-core tasks. said the president of the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards. That may include using more civilians or giving up some tasks to private security firms, he said. We need to sit down and do that kind of an analysis and get away from the notion that every service provided by police must be performed by a uniformed officer. The province should also cap wage and increases at the rate of inflation, blah, 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 some other stuff there. But he's basically saying that policing is going up 5 to 7% a year, and it's getting out of control. And it was really expensive. It was a fucking burden, okay? Because this is in 2012. This article was 2012. It's 6 years old. So can I say that policing has gone up 25 to 30% based on if this article is accurate, since 2012? So now, since 2012, in Toronto and Ontario, we have 25, 30% more money going to the cops. And all of a sudden, they make cannabis decriminalized. Boom, money saved, right? Man hours accumulated, spent arresting and prosecuting and going to court and housing and criminalizing and institutionalizing users of cannabis, when all we have to do really is decriminalize it. And what do you think about that? Does that ever get into your way, or just go, okay, this is what they threw down, we have to go this way?
You're looking at me, Ken.
Yeah, either one of you, I don't care.
So my perspective would be that I believe that you're going to see men and women unified in solution. And I don't know if you're with me here.
I am. We're going to be unified in solution, but what is the solution?
You have to give it time now. They're marinating in that, and they're going to come up with those together if you bring them together.
Okay. Well, we have to bring them together in situations such as in Philadelphia, where they've been doing it for 4 years now in Philadelphia. It says marijuana's been decrimmed for a year in Philly, and it's a 3-year-old article. And then there's another article that says, yes, it's decriminalized, but we are still collecting fines. It's been 18 months now since the city statute passed, but the state law remains. So there's your I got a joint in Philadelphia. It depends on the cop's discretion or some kind of thing. I mean, these are the issues that get in the way. This is what I meant to say. This plant's everywhere on the planet, but you can't access it through. Everybody's got a different weird shifting sand game of laws. Like, it's tough to get around.
One of the good men we're meeting in Colorado is a cannabis refugee. So he has had to uproot his family more than once based on those laws in different jurisdictions.
Wow. He's a cannabis refugee from Canada?
Stateside.
Oh, in the States. Okay.
So it's from one state to another. It's when they live in an illegal state and they want to use cannabis as a medication, and then they have to move to a legal state in order to either give that medication to their children, which is one of the most common cannabis refugees in the States, is people with children trying to treat seizure conditions.
Go to different
children's cancers and stuff like that, and they have to move the entire family to take care of that child, you know?
Yeah. Well, just before the recent fracas, Trump going to Russia and standing in front of the Queen, who, quite frankly, needs to be stood in front of. Anyway, so here is a fella on the Fox TV channel network saying something. I think this might end it. I think this might end the discrimination, at least in the States anyway, or at least that's the idea now. I know we hate this guy. So many people, I mean, what he's done recently, wow. But listen to this.
Marijuana is removed from Schedule A. Law enforcement. Law enforcement.
Oh, sorry, a little bit too fast. Hang on, I was buzzing through it at a different speed. So this is what's his name? Judge Napolitano talking about Trump.
Really has more important things to do, and I'm talking about NYPD, cops in the street in any major city, and FBI. That's the last thing they should be diverting their energies to now. In the District of Columbia, marijuana is lawful for recreational use. You could light up on the floor of the House of Representatives if you wanted to.
So between this, Alice Johnson commutation, some of the things we're hearing, are you surprised? Does it feel like President Trump is revealing a libertarian sort of stance here, or something that, to me, I think would appeals to more millennials? It appears to more non-traditional Republicans. I think it could ultimately be a good thing for the party. But what do you think? I mean, it's amazing to see this play out.
I am surprised, but happily so. The libertarian in me says you should be able to put into your own body what you want. We're talking about adults in the privacy of their home. We're not talking about people while they're driving. We're not talking about giving it to children. We're not talking about using it in public. I mean, you no more smoke marijuana on the streets, theoretically, than you would chug a gallon of scotch on the streets, even though both are lawful and private in certain places. But for a Republican to do this is somewhat startling. You know, the president doesn't fit a mold.
Okay, we'll leave it at there. The president doesn't fit a mold, but apparently Trump is, and this would be driving Jeff Sessions crazy, apparently Trump is mulling over, among other things he's doing. Can you imagine, though, if he just said, okay, you know what, that's enough of that. There's no federal law against it. Then it would be a states' rights thing. That's what he always likes to talk about, a states' rights thing, whether it's for, you know, making wedding cakes for gay people or whatever. But a states' right thing on cannabis would be most helpful, I think, don't you?
Definitely would. I mean, it would give access to it as medication for every state if those states so chose, you know what I mean? And it would eliminate the chance of being arrested for growing it or using it as medication, so like it'll eliminate cannabis refugees at the state level more or less, because they're running from the state laws, but then they're still federally illegal when it comes to when they're in a rec state, right? So they still have to worry about being raided by the federal government, being arrested on the federal level, going to prison on the federal level when it comes to cannabis, right? So if they eliminated the federal statutes on cannabis, then it would just be down to a state level, and then you could pick your state
to live
move
in or
there
move to,
and grow your cannabis how you see fit for yourself and medicate how you see fit for yourself, and you would have freedom, you know what I mean, at that point with your medication, which is what I think everybody is after when it comes to getting better and treating themselves. You want freedom. You want freedom from your illness. And
I think there's a resistance to that, and I think that's one of the reasons it's taking so long. There's an overall institutionalized, corporatized, governmentalized resistance to doing that. I think that's the only reason. I mean, they say they don't have any information. That's, you know,
well, you were talking about routine earlier,
like
right? And routine is the same thing when it comes to medication.
Sure.
For the last, 100 years, we've all been focused on the pharmaceutical aspect of medication. This is what fixes you. This is what fixes you. This is what fixes you. Meanwhile, they had the reefer madness and the war on drugs that started. You know, the war on drugs was bad in the 80s, and the 30s, the reefer madness and all that went on. So it just got pushed away. But if you look before that, cannabis was used as medication before that. Even in the United States, you can find bottles of medication that says cannabis sativa, 18%.
And isn't it amazing?
And then it'll have cocaine in there too at the same time.
Yeah.
It's hilarious, But I think they found a clay pot in an Egyptian tomb that had hash residue on the inside of it. It was like 26 or 2,700 years old, or even older, I think.
Still good.
Probably was still good. I don't know. Probably a little dry by that point, but they found hash residue inside of a jar, so they assumed that they had used the jar to make some sort of like medical tincture or something like that to treat some sort of ailment back then. So everybody's known about it for thousands of years.
Yeah. Tell me about your injury. You've got some knee problems.
Yeah,
lots of people have.
So I
that.
fractured a kneecap, and I was misdiagnosed with a meniscal tear. So the meniscus is like the little cushion in between your upper and lower leg, and so they stuck a brace on me, and the brace held the fracture open instead of allowing it to close. So it turned on my body's bone growing genes, or whatever you want to call it. So I basically grow bone nonstop now, 24/7. So I had 2 surgeries in 2011 while I served in the Canadian Forces, and the hopes for the surgeries that I had then was to correct the problem enough for me to go back and continue my career, and that didn't happen. I failed to meet. It's called universality of service. So that's a yearly or biannual physical fitness exam that you have to go through in order to stay in the military. So it's a baseline test that says, okay, you're still good enough that if we need you to go overseas, you're healthy enough that you can go over, right? So I couldn't do that anymore, so that's why I was released. So I left in 2012, and I moved to Alberta, and I ended up working in Fort McMurray for a few years up there, and then came back here so my wife could go to school. She's a baker now. And then just the knees got worse as time went on. The bone started growing real bad, and then when I had the surgery last year in May, he said that there was 5 or 6 holes in my tendon.
Whoa.
So that the bone had actually grown right through the tendon. itself.
Wow. And that's going to hurt, right? Like that just
I'm
causes
at about
pain.
an 8 to 9 out of 10 on the pain scale, I would say, without cannabis, daily, 24/7.
8 to 9 out of 10.
Yeah, and it's been that way since like 2011.
Well, I've had you in here for almost 40 minutes. Are you okay?
I'm surviving.
Okay, because I'm not even kidding. If you need to go and do something,
no, I'm surviving.
Let me know. It's not.
I'm surviving. We're good.
Impossible. Okay, so that's super uncomfortable. Have you remedied, Henah, anything of your own self? And you'd have to move it to the mic a bit. Have you used cannabis at all? But I didn't even ask you that.
I know. I was waiting for you to ask me that.
There it is.
There it is.
Run with it.
Yeah. 2004, I was pregnant for my daughter Sky, and I go into a health store in Vancouver Island, and right on the cover of Mothering magazine was this beautiful naked belly, this woman who's about to birth, with a big joint in her hand, and it says that medical cannabis cures nausea, morning sickness. Well, I had hyperemesis. Hyperemesis is where you have morning sickness, morning, noon, and night, and you're challenged to keep down water, let alone any other nutrients. So at 8 months pregnant for Sky, I told my partner, hurry up and go get some quick.
8 months.
Yeah, and then I was able to eat, and I was able to gain weight, and it did cure my nausea. So my experience with medical cannabis comes from a
practical use.
Yes, and from a birthing experience as well. So I have to tell you this, Alan. So I birthed all 3 of my children at home in the water, and in the bathtub. And with my first one, I did not use medical cannabis in my pregnancy, and with the second one, I did. And not only was the nausea alleviated, but the actual birthing experience of when you're dilating and you're actually pushing is so much more relaxed. And I was able to slow down my breathing so that you're able to not experience pain.
That'll crush a lot of pain, like 30-40%, I would bet, right there.
Right, just by being able to relax while in the water. Yeah, so that's my experience.
Wow. And so when you were pregnant, would you say through your 3 pregnancies that the pregnancies all were as physically inconvenient? Like, were they all painful, or and then 2 out of 3 were less?
All my deliveries were pain-free, and those were all very special. But the actual pregnancy itself, suffering from hyperemesis with all 3 of them, I was able to be alleviated in the last 2 where I had access to cannabis.
Right. And
yes.
What is it again? Hyperemesis?
Hyperemesis, yes. Mm-hmm.
That's unreal.
They actually call it cannabis hyperemesis. They've
right?
been talking about too, where apparently people who use too much cannabis can develop that.
Right. And I would like to ask, because I'm sure people who might be alarmed to hear this, what, 8 months pregnant? Oh my God, you got a fetus in there. It's like, they equate it with drinking or something.
Sure.
So did you have any at that time issues to get through? I mean, did your doctor say, oh no, you can't do that, or anybody tell you no?
No, I had a midwife, and my midwives, bless them, were extremely open-minded because I was at a state of so much weight loss and malnutrition and vomiting water for days on end and hospitalized for dehydration that the instant relief that came within 30 minutes, and I could eat and drink anything. There goes the smoothie. Now I can get the stuff in, and I gained weight. Right. So I had to look at way out the worst of 2 evils of being underweight and what that would do to the baby versus being able to eat and get the nutrients in.
Medical munchies.
And I had studied to the best of my ability that the only side effect is that the children are born with a higher IQ. So I can live with that.
Did that happen?
Absolutely, yes, it did.
They're born with a higher. Now, come on, not the first one where you took it at 8 months. Was there still? That was your first time. Your third kid.
I don't know what their
taking
IQ
it the whole
is.
time.
They're all bright, but I do notice that my 2 daughters were, I did use medical cannabis to get through that nausea. They do have a different disposition.
I'm so sorry. Let me go back again. Your first kid is. You're not taking cannabis, and then you start taking it at 8 months.
With my second one. With the first
so the
one.
first kid, never any cannabis at all?
In fact, I had a phobia. I wouldn't be in the same room with people who smoked medical cannabis.
Sure.
I wanted it far away from me.
Okay, that's what I thought I had wrong. So first kid, no cannabis. Second kid, you put it in there in the 8th month.
Correct.
And the 9th month.
Correct.
On through till the kid was born.
born.
And the third kid from the beginning.
I tried to hold out. I was in the 4th month, and Heaven was a twin. And so there was 2 of them, and I was losing weight by the day. I couldn't keep anything down, and as soon as I was able to get access to 2 things, 3 really, moringa, honey, and medical cannabis.
Oh, yeah.
Then I was able to gain weight and stay out of the hospital and had a healthy baby.
Moringa, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
We don't have. That's green. We can talk
It's
about
all
that.
green.
Green. Moringa is a good one, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I haven't used it in a while, but what's great about that again? Vitamin C. Or something?
It's a superfood. Yeah, they use it a lot in countries for malnutrition. But what I wanted to say is that in 2004, when I birthed Sky and used medical cannabis, I had no awareness that there was such a thing as edibles, that I could have eaten a brownie. I would have preferred. If I have known that I could have had a cup of tea, I would have. So we've come a long way, even in my own life, for me to know that you could make a coffee with it. I learned that from you.
Right. Okay, well, that's true. Well, I remember the same thing. I mean, as I look back, I mean, all the way to high school when I first tried to use it on through, sometimes it was really an effect that I would call sort of exciting, and I'd want to listen to music or go see a movie or something. And other times I'd kind of veg out, and then I would always think, well, she's got better pot than he does because I like the effect of this one. But it turns out it was that one was sativa and one's indica, and you don't know that stuff. It's just grass.
I learned that this year.
Did you really learn?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So you don't even know what you were taking back when you were pregnant?
No.
Just whatever was available?
All I knew that it was organic. So because I was
right,
I would be nursing. It was completely pesticide-free and outdoor grown.
Wow. That's incredible. And so have you used it for other things? Or, I mean, you're not pregnant. You don't look pregnant right now.
No, but I did have a very good man made for us recently, a salve that you can put on your body and your face, and it's cannabis infused.
It's got coconut oil and beeswax in it. It's a topical.
It's a healing salve, and you can put that on psoriasis. You can put that on all kinds of things, and on your wrinkles as well. So yeah, it has many purposes. Yes.
I look forward to some serious, and again, this comes from the laws and legalizing it, and the Trump or the whoever president or whoever finally saying, okay, enough of this nonsense, because the burn victims. Can you imagine? I mean, I've seen what this stuff can do to regenerate skin. I sliced this finger so badly. I've got pictures of it. You wouldn't even be able to tell. I put that in there like Ozanol.
Really?
And I just had a gaping wound in this finger. I'll show you after the show on my phone. Gaping wound. Stupidly opened a jar that had a broken lip and cranked it, and it just went dig, right? And I was going to I cleaned it out, sucked it out, and then I was going to put in the alcohol and all that stuff and put in the Ozanol and tape it up. And it just hit me. Use the oil instead. Try that. So I squirted it in the trench, put a Band-Aid around it, didn't throb, didn't cause any pain or whatever. And when I went to bed that night, I got up in the morning and I just put another one on. 3 days in a row. It's all sealed up in pink. And look at that. I mean, you can't see a thing. It's unreal. So I think if they were able to spend less time with the laws and how dangerous it is, and more time formulating it into something, like you say, a salve or something for your skin, burn victims.
Yes.
It's amazing what it can do, even just on a sunburn.
Skin cancer too.
You know what I like? I'm seeing a lot of veterans with the capsules, and I see veterans where they have their little kit. They've got their morning capsules and their nighttime capsules.
Oh, right.
I sort of like that form of it from a convenience and a health perspective as well. That you can capsule it and be on the go, and still they can still get their medicine. They've now been able to figure out that this is a morning one, this is a daytime one, and this one will help me go to sleep. I kind of like that.
We have to make our own capsules though. They're not covered under the.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you do? How do you make capital?
Well, you use I have a machine that processes the cannabis. So it's basically like an industrial blender mixed with a slow cooker together. So you decarboxylate your cannabis, however much you need for your dosage. You throw it in, and it mixes it up for you, infuses whatever fluid you're using, and off you go, man. You
sounds like a commercial. Well, you got to get the name of that thing.
So it sounds like Ken can make you a tincture that you can use for your boo-boos next time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, actually, I had brought a syringe with some oil in it to show you. I wanted to touch on talking about what a nanogram is.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about that.
We talked about that last week at your house.
Yeah.
So I did. Now, I don't know what the diffusion rate is of nanograms per milliliter of blood. Now, I don't know that aspect.
I don't even know what that means.
Okay, so like to go over the legal limit, I don't know how many nanograms putting into you equals the into your actual bloodstream for the test itself.
Oh, you mean so theoretically
I
you
can
could
tell
take
you
10
how much
nanograms and only show 2 or something?
Yeah, because only so much is processed by your body, right? So if you take FECO, like what you used for your cancer, right?
Full
so that's about
extraction cannabis oil.
It's about 90% pure, right? So 90% pure THC or CBD, depending on whatever you're using, right? So at that point, you go off the dry weight. Now, I had a syringe out there that has 3.5 milliliters of fully extracted cannabis oil in it. So at 90%, that's like about 3 grams total, 3,000 milligrams of THC, we'll say. Now, a nanogram is 1/1000th of a gram.
What?
1/1000th with a B. Yep.
A billion.
Yes, sir. So the
nanogram.
Yes. So the syringe that's sitting out there on a table that I can hold in the palm of my hand has 3 billion nanograms in it.
Well, you must be hammered.
So
So this is a completely ridiculous number then already on its face. It can't be
like
really
literally 3 billion is the size of my first digit of my thumb. That's 3 billion nanograms.
So my question is this: if you were going to smoke a joint, let's just keep it basic so even people that don't smoke joints can understand what that means. And I take one puff, how many nanograms have I got in me?
I found an article about that. So the article is actually from the Denver Post, and I believe it was dated in 2013 or 14. And it states that 4 puffs off of a standard-sized marijuana cigarette, because that's what they have to call it, right?
Sure. Can't talk about cones.
Will have in your blood 56 nanograms.
For one toke?
4 puffs. So divide that by 4. One puff's about 16.
So one puff is 16 nanograms.
Apparently one puff is 3 times the secondary over the legal limit under the new laws, which is 5 nanograms. Will send you to prison if you go over
So you need to do like an 1/8 of a puff in order to fall under the 2 gram
you need
nanogram
to do
limit.
I smoked marijuana, but I never inhaled puff.
Right.
That's what you need to do.
So you could get pulled over. They could suspect everything, and you could read that you had you could show that you had 1 nanogram in you, if that's even possible, and then you'd still have to go through all the hassle of having been.
Well, I think it's
pulled
2 to
over
5, and
dealt
then
with
5 plus are the limits.
2 to 5 and 5 plus.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, but I've heard it's illegal. I got to get the laws. I mean, they keep changing. They keep moving things around on us. But basically, 2 nanograms is what I heard was what we were doing in Ontario. That means you're intoxicated.
Yes. Yeah,
So
2
you-
to
you-
5 nanograms is the
you
initial
wanted
fail,
the-
and then anything over
the-
5 is the secondary charge,
You
where
wanted
it's
the
a higher
budget to come
offense.
down for the police? Well, it will, because that keeps the cannabis users off the road. It's a lot less pullovers. How are you going to drive?
At the beginning, I think it's going to be a real bomb because I don't think a lot of people understand the severity of the law system that's been put onto Canada. Folks are coming around now at this moment. We were already supposed to be legalized on the 1st of July, and people are still thinking, oh yeah, well, I guess it's going to be legal soon, and that's cool, huh? And they don't realize the draconian sort of heavy laws that are behind it, and they're going to be going legally to a store to buy, at the liquor store, the Toronto, the Cannabis Store of Ontario, whatever it's called, and they're going to go like they would buy a bottle of booze or something, and they're going to buy this, and they could actually get pulled over on the way home, and the guy's going to want to see if they got I mean, this is going to be nuts. At the beginning, people who don't know the rules now are also not going to know the rules all that well. They'll think, I had one joint at a party, that's okay.
Yeah, it
I
stays
was at a
in your
party. I had
system
one
so
joint
long,
at
though.
7 o'clock, and I went home at 11:30. What's the big deal? The big deal is you're testing positive for 20 nanograms. That's what's wrong.
It stays in your system for so long that, like, if you're a medical user, so someone like myself, I've been using it daily for at least 2 years. Okay, so it will take a certain amount of time for THC to leave my body.
A month.
Now, the other issue with that is if you have fat on your body, THC is stored in fat cells. Now, you can say stop smoking for a week, go to the gym, and leave, and after working out, the fat cells will have burned off and release THC, and you could test positive for THC just by burning off your own fat cells. Even if you haven't smoked for a week, you'd be 100% sober, and you could still end up being over by just going to the gym and burning fat cells and getting pulled over for forgetting your signal on the way out of the gym or something like that.
Wow. Brought to you by Sober Minds Everywhere, folks. We can't have people taking cannabis screwing everything up in society. Oh, my God. That's unbelievable. So yeah, you're going to and then you've also done the thing where you didn't smoke it for days, or you didn't take it for days just because you need to drive somewhere in the week. What is it, Tuesday? So you're going to go somewhere on the weekend, say. Well, if you really want to take your family to, Georgia Bay or whatever it is for the weekend, I guess you better not smoke anymore between now and Saturday. Go through your fucking pain, deal with it, take your kids up there, have a good time, come back, and then decide not to drive again and start taking your medicine again. I mean, what the hell? We can't stand for this, right?
Well, you can put it in drive, take your Dilaudid.
Yeah.
There's no test for Dilaudid, right? There's no test for morphine or oxy
right?
on the roadside like that. There's nothing for that.
There's nothing like that. And they've been prescribed things such as this for so long, and now they want to turn. So this all keeps going into a pyramid shape. Why do they keep telling us, okay, now it's legal, but it isn't. Now you can have it, but you can't. It's just like it's just like alcohol, except you can't smoke it outside on a patio. It's just like cigarettes, except you can't smoke when you're walking down the street.
Or you can't advertise.
And you can't advertise, and you can't put girls
T-shirts,
in bikinis running around like
nothing.
Budweiser can do for a beach party. I mean, not that I'm saying that's what we're missing culturally, that every product needs to have bikini gals running around on a beach. But those beer commercials, right? I mean, they're selling sex. They're taking booze and they're completely merging it with sex and going, drink this, you'll get laid and have a great time. That's what they're saying in the commercials. We can't even have a guy come on in a black background and say, I used to be really messed up with my knees from doing these maneuvers, and unfortunately the bones grew to such a thing that I've got such pain now that I do use this cannabis, and it actually factually does help eliminate my pain. Can't even have a commercial like that.
No, but like a concert can be put on by by a alcohol company, right?
Yeah.
Now,
most of them are.
Why wouldn't a cannabis company not want to sponsor, say, a Snoop Dogg concert or a Grateful Dead cover band concert
or anything? It doesn't even have to be that.
Exactly, but even something that's related to that part of that.
Could be Allison Kraull for all I care. Who cares? I mean, that's the exact point. It doesn't make sense to say this thing that we demonstrably have data on, this alcohol, and then we can't do it over here. This is what we have to change. We have to change it.
I'll go out on a limb to say this, but if the Canadian government was to be producing it and they were selling their brand, well, then they would market it. Wouldn't we have commercials?
Well, I'm sure they'd be able to bend the rules in that direction.
Just food for thought.
It is food for thought.
Well, you'd have 3 different commercials. Don't buy their cannabis. The conservatives don't know how to grow it properly, and then
True enough.
Brought to you by the Liberal Party, That's how it's going to go.
The other thing is, though, too, with
political ads for cannabis.
But you say about smoking it and how a lot of your folks that don't want to smoke it and they want to eat it and take it in, that's not even in the legislation now, though.
No.
I mean, we're still not going to have that in October. This is just dry stuff we're talking about, and they are going to take their time.
Well, the oils will be there. The oils are going to be there.
They are?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's oils, dried cannabis, and they're allowing concentrates they're going to be talking about as well.
And in all fairness, with the edibles, I'm still now learning what that looks like from others as to if this is a cannabis brownie, how much of this brownie do I eat? And if I go to someone else's house and have a cannabis brownie, am I going to eat the same amount, or is there, so I think there's, again, dosing along the edibles is really important.
Yeah, that's, again, though, research.
Yes.
That's understanding, like, how much of this will, how much, we already know that with alcohol. We know that with lots of things.
Well, the best part about cannabis is you can use trial and error because you're not going to die.
Well, that's true, too, yeah.
Right? I mean, you can't do trial and error with alcohol because you get alcohol poisoning. You know what I mean?
You'd be too far
or
into
morphine,
it at that point,
or like, I wonder how much meth I can take. No, you can't do that because you're going to die.
Right.
That's not going to happen with cannabis. Yeah,
No.
you're not going to have a very good time if you eat way too much.
First.
But then you're going to pass out and you're going to wake up in a day and you're going to feel great because you just slept for 18 hours.
Let's talk common sense on our way out of here. Now, I want to remind folks who are still listening at the end here that who you are and where we can find you, where we can keep track with the veterans.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
The Veterans channel is www.veteranstelevision.com. We're a digital broadcasting channel online right now.
And it's available at this moment, right?
It's available. There's no cost for it. It's free for veterans all over the world.
And do you have to be a veteran to view it?
No, not on today's date. Within the channel, I think it's important to note, Alan, within the channel we have several networks that we're building now, from complementary alternative medicine to retreats to homes and housing, where our viewership can access other services, discounts, resources, benefits. Within that, they log in. Yes, we encourage the veterans to log in there. We keep that private for our members.
Okay, thank you very much. So that's all, and online, available right now. It's already up and running, and these series of documentary shoots that you've been doing will come up later.
Alan, can I share one thing before we go?
Sure.
I think it's important for us to note, for me to note, and to feel, to stay in honor that, ironically, and not by it wasn't on my bucket list, but the launch of the Veterans Channel was made possible this year in January by the name of a good man named Mr. John Lynch, who has newly founded an entity called CanOps and is committed to bringing research and development and awareness to our veterans right now and sponsoring us in the sense of going out and getting those stories right now. So I just wanted to share that and just say thank you, because we're blessed to have been able to launch. And ironically, it was the beautiful green plant and everything around it and what it can do for you that did that.
And where can we? Are you guys going to be roaming across the country to keep on going?
All over the place. We're going to be posting everything on Facebook, and I have started Instagram for the documentary, and it is Ken Proude 16 H20 show.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 1620 is
like 420, but military.
Yeah, but military time. Yeah, 24-hour clock.
That's cool. So 1620.
Yeah, we'll let everybody know when our first episode goes up.
Fantastic. When do you expect the ballpark?
Within the next 30 days for sure.
Oh,
we'll get that out of the
fantastic.
editing room, and I thank you for what we did at your house. We'll take those clips and a little bit of this, and we'll highlight us working.
Do something with it. Yeah. Okay. So, quick question. Well, it's not really a quick question, but I want a quick take on a heavy topic on our way out of here from both of you. What do they say? They say they want to protect the kids. The gatekeepers, the government. They want to protect the kids, and they want to make sure that the consumers are protected, and that's why they're doing what they're doing and the way they're doing it. And they say to get rid of the black market. The way you see legalization rolling out, is that getting rid of the black market?
No, I don't think so. I think the black market's going to stay, whether it's legal and cheap for everybody, because some people they're not going to want to shop at an institutionalized cannabis place, like a store with no windows, no signs, like you're walking into somewhere where it feels negative. Why would you want to go somewhere with negative energy to get something that's such a positive thing? You're going to want to go to a place where the people are your friends, they recognize you, there's open windows, there's places to relax, like just the places, the way they have it right now. The illegal dispensaries that are around right now are doing it the way it should be done when it comes to like customer satisfaction and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like the knowledge is there with everybody. They're open, they're friendly, and I don't think that everybody's going to want to have to go to this place to get it.
Right.
I would say that there is a certain demographics of men and women that are not going to want to be red flagged crossing the border if that potential does exist. And I've talked to a few of them who are not quite comfortable going and getting a prescription and having that, being a patient per se, until they are sure that it does not affect them with international travel.
Well, I think we're all a little bit nervous about that. International travel right now is there's a problem going on almost everywhere.
Well,
and
I'll find out Friday.
Yeah, I guess you will, because we just had a clip on the show. You might hear it later about well, you won't, but
he won't.
But I'm saying people that have been asked to cross the border. You do know that some people have been asked whether they use it or not, and then this one gentleman who apparently doesn't use it, or maybe does, I don't know, but he wasn't stopped for that. He was stopped because he invests in an American legal, in a state where there's a legal company, like your company or my company. He's investing into, when they found that out, they wouldn't let him into the border. So that's why I think, this Trump, whatever else he does, I hope he manages to get this cannabis thing, throw that lever, I hope we can get this done soon. But I really appreciate you guys coming in and putting in the hard work that you put in, the traveling, and that you were able to find a benefactor to help get you through this. We have to stop some things and we have to change some things. Mm-hmm. I'm sure glad that you guys we're on the same team. Thank you for coming in. This has been Green Crush Conspiracy Queries. It's another one for the can. We're sitting here looking at episode 120, Green Crush 48, and it's going to be a bit of a long ride getting through the summer with the heat, I guess, but pay attention to your local politician. We have a new leader here in Ontario, and he is says he's open to feedback. And he wanted to change the ridiculous system that was provided in the past, set up to go by Kathleen Wynne, and then they're pretty much going to go with it as it is somehow. I don't know why that is, but I have my suspicions. They aren't really the people running things. If you believe Doug, just a rotten nightmare. All right, this is Alan Park, Green Crush. Okay. Thanks a lot.